Well, as Kyiv officials struggle to keep their situation in the global spotlight, it's all too palpable for soldiers on the front line. Correspondent Nick Connolly follows now a group of Ukrainian drone pilots as they navigate the treacherous roadways near the embattled city of Pokrovsk.
Anywhere else, you might think that sound was someone mowing their lawn. Except we're 20 kilometers from Pokrovsk.
That could be an attack drone.
And that's why we were asked to blur some of the images in this report, to make it harder for Russian forces to identify the exact locations. This is meant to be a safe place, or at least safer. A place where Ukrainian soldiers stay when they're not on active duty. Any closer to Pokrovsk, and the only hope of avoiding a drone hit is moving as fast as possible. This team is going in for a week's rotation near Pokrovsk. These men know all about drones. After years at the receiving end of drone attacks as infantry soldiers, the whole unit decided to swap sides and become drone pilots themselves.
At
some point we were all wounded. Bullet wounds, shrapnel wounds, serious concussion. I just had an operation. Me and the boys have been together for years in different units. We went all the way from infantry to special forces together. We decided we'd done enough shooting, enough running around down the years. It was time to start using technology to fight for us.
It's a paradoxical situation. Drone technology is revolutionizing the battlefield. No one can hope to hide for long. And yet that same drone technology is forcing infantry units on both sides to fight the old-fashioned way, on foot. Tanks and armored vehicles attract too much attention from the sky.
The Russians have their standard algorithm. They come in on foot in small groups until they have enough men, and then they storm our positions. On foot, or sometimes they use motorbikes, quad bikes. Last summer we even saw them attacking on electric scooters.
Unlike infantry soldiers, these Ukrainian drone pilots don't always have to walk to their positions. They're based a bit further behind the front lines. Getting there by road is still possible, for now at least. Pokrovsk has been Russia's #1 target for over a year, the place where Russia's commanders have put most manpower. As early as December 2024, analysts were predicting the city would fall to Russia in a matter of weeks. And yet, through 2025, Ukrainian troops held on. In early December of that year, Russia claimed it had taken Pokrovsk almost as an afterthought. It was a far cry from the kind of pomp with which the occupation of Avdiivka and Bakhmut were announced. Ukraine immediately denied the claim and put out its own footage showing its troops still operating in the city. In February of 2026, the US-based Institute for the Study of War said it had, quote, not observed evidence of Ukrainian forces operating within Pokrovsk since late January 2026. And yet Russia, never usually slow to claim a win, hasn't tried to convince the world that it is fully in control of Pokrovsk, nor has Ukraine acknowledged a full withdrawal. I asked the commander about the situation on the ground in Pokrovsk.
I'd love to reply to that question, but I can't. It's a matter of safety.
In mid-March 2026, a spokesperson for a Ukrainian unit fighting in the region told Radio NV that Ukrainian infantry soldiers are indeed still on the ground in Pokrovsk itself. This is where our journey ends. Driving any closer in a regular vehicle is just too dangerous. It's a nervous wait for the armoured personnel carrier to take the new team in and bring their predecessors out. If anything goes wrong, these men will have to go in and find them.
What are you doing? We're on camera. My wife doesn't know I smoke. She thinks I gave up.
Clear skies and perfect visibility for Russian drone pilots make it even more risky than usual.
An armored vehicle is a prime target for the Russians. They'll do anything they can to catch up with them. Phew, I got out.
That's our armored personnel carrier coming back. Or it could be a drone. Sometimes they sound the same.
No, it's not him. It is.
The danger isn't just from above. Russian drones routinely drop magnetic mines on these roads, Tyson tells us. That's why he has to swerve around anything on the road, however small it looks.
Did your brakes go?
Turns out the personnel carrier was damaged trying to dodge a fiber optic cable drone that was waiting for them by the roadside.
The boys are laughing about it now. That's them calming themselves down. What matters is that they got out, that they're still moving.
It doesn't always work that way. Most of these soldiers have at some point lost their vehicle to drone attacks and have had to get out to safety on foot.
We loaded up the car and were heading back when 2 FPV drones hit a meter away. The situation on the ground was really confusing. Some of the Russian positions were only 2 kilometers away, others 15. Russian reconnaissance groups were already on the ground. We tried to keep under cover of trees the whole way. We left at dawn and got back at dusk.
Getting out at night isn't an option because thermal imaging cameras will pick up any movement. Those same cameras don't work during the day. Back at the digs, after a week on the front lines and a dangerous drive back, the mood is buoyant. We asked the driver how the day's trip compared to previous journeys to these same positions.
Today was tough. It's looking more and more like Mirnograd down there. My last trip was 4 days ago, and since then there are 4 new burnt-out armored trucks and 6 pickups.
It's a pattern these men have seen repeat itself over and over. Burnt-out vehicles build up and either block the roads or slow traffic down to such an extent that it becomes an easy target for waiting Russian drones, until the only way in and out is on foot, and supplies have to come in by air. Normally that means special heavy drones that can carry up to 15 kilos each time. But this attack drone pilot found himself asked to share his rations with some infantry soldiers who'd been cut off from supplies.
This
is the first time in all the years I've been a drone pilot I've ever had to do something like this. I sent a fiber optic attack drone to carry cigarettes and food to some of our infantry guys who are in a really difficult situation. They're not getting any supplies. They should have gotten out of there a long time ago. We were really worried that the cable wouldn't be long enough and that the drone wouldn't carry that much weight. We know what it feels like to be in a place like that. At least we managed to give them a chance to have a drink, a smoke, and something to eat.
Дуже переживали, щоб його туди донести, щоб хоча б якийсь день вони там хоч якусь там води попили, ковбаси, цигарок, я сам це розумію.
This is what the drone camera saw when it reached its intended recipients, carrying its unlikely cargo of sausage and cigarettes in place of explosives. How many more Ukrainian soldiers are now dependent on these kinds of improvised deliveries from the sky, and how many of them are actually still in Pokrovsk itself, no one wants to say.
And let's get more. We are joined by Domatia Sagramoso. She is an expert on Russian foreign and security policy at King's College in London. And I'd like to begin first by asking you a little bit about what we saw in that piece. Talk with us first about Pokrovsk. Why is this city so strategically important, for the Russians who want to capture it and also for the Ukrainians who have defended it for such a long time?
Yes, I mean, from the information that we have, the Russians are mostly in control of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, which is the town next door to it. This was an important communication hub. It is for the Ukrainians in particular, because it was linking the roads that went from Dnipro all the way then to Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, which is these are the sort of the strongholds, the defensive strongholds of Ukraine in the Donbass, in the Donetsk Oblast. And the Ukrainians have really, fought very hard to try to keep this area under Ukrainian control, especially the city of Pokrovsk, because of its relevance in terms of communications and allowing in that way to better protect these sort of defensive lines that go all the way from Konstantinivka all the way up to Slavyansk. And now Konstantinivka is also very much under pressure from the southeast. So the situation there is challenging, especially because of the need for manpower and support. I think that it's going to be probably the area where the Russians are going to exert the most pressure. At the same time, the Ukrainians are moving forward and are pushing back Russians further south around in the areas around Ulyapolye, which was an area that the Russians had taken a few months back. And there they're trying to stop the Russian advances towards Zaporizhia, the city of Zaporizhia, and also towards the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. So while the situation is very challenging in the Donetsk Oblast, in the Pokrovsk front, there are areas further south where the Ukrainians are doing better, because these were areas where the Russians were able to move in, but not in a substantial manner. So a lot depends very much where the front is. The situation is now challenging because we are starting to see the beginnings of what usually is called the spring offensive. Yes, sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. I mean, the situation is rapidly evolving, in various areas. And I'm wondering, when we look at the overall picture, what your biggest concerns are when you look specifically at Ukraine's positions on the battlefield right now. And perhaps you can also give us a sense of how you're looking at things through the lens of the war that is going on right now in Iran and diverting also so much attention.
Yes, I think the question of the war in Iran is significant because it diverts attention. It also is allowing the Russians, because of the increase in energy prices, to earn apparently $150 million per day. That's a lot of money, and that means that they will be encouraged to continue fighting and less prone to come to the negotiations table and to make compromises. And that's a real concern. On the other hand, the Ukrainians have come up as sort of really the world experts in not only in drones, but also in interceptor drones, in finding ways through which many of these attacks can be countered. If we think about drones, they play a very important role now on the front line because they allow to, they give a lot of visibility and transparency to the front line. So if you're on a defensive position, you're at an advantage because the offensive side, will have to overcome this transparency. And also what we're noticing is that many of these drones are able to hit far back. That also applies to the Russian drones. They can sometimes go 40, 50 kilometers. So they hit at what we would call ground lines of communication, logistics, supports. Also, drones are important and all other technological support in terms of evacuation of the wounded. The Ukrainians are using unmanned ground vehicles. So we increasingly see the use of robotics to address issues of logistics and also to help the wounded on the front line. And all this technology is further enhanced by the use of artificial intelligence, especially if we think about the front line and the attacks. As far as Iran is concerned, the big challenge now, the big problem is that it's absorbing a lot of the missiles that are used in air defensive systems, like in the Patriot systems. And that's going to be a real concern for the defense of the skies of Ukraine, because the Ukrainians are relying on these systems like Patriots to protect the cities and the critical energy infrastructure, for example.
We want to thank you so much for your time. Domatia Sagromoso, we appreciate it.